Dude, what's up, man?
What's up? Nice to finally meet you,
Awesome.
dude. This is cool.
Yeah, you too. I was eating dinner with my folks tonight. I said, "Do you want to have a family dinner?" And then you messaged me, and I was like, "Yeah, let's do that. That sounds fun."
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
it's cool to it's been cool to meet everyone on Instagram and then kind of see what everyone's doing and then uh hear their stories. That's been my favorite part about this whole thing is
for
kind of
sure.
just having everyone on the pod and just hearing their stories, really. It's cool. I don't know. Everyone's got like if you're like a full-time musician, it's like you have like a crazy story, everyone's got
Right.
it's like it's always a wild ride. So
It is. That's for sure.
yeah, and
Yes.
you're in Kansas, right? Wichita?
Yeah. Wichita.
Is that the
That's it.
is that the capital?
No, the capital's Topeka. But
Okay.
honestly, not a whole lot goes on up there. It's
Really?
kind of weird.
Okay.
Aside from Kansas City, Wichita is kind of like the biggest city in Kansas. Um, we have like,
Okay.
I haven't checked recently. I think we have like 500,000 people that live in like the Wichita area. So
Okay.
like so technically I live just south of Wichita in a smaller city. It's like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Um, but Wichita's, I'm up there all the time.
And you've been there your whole life in Kansas?
Yeah. Yep.
And how old are you now?
So 31.
31. Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. Getting old.
Is it is there dude, I'm gonna be 35, man. We're still young, dude.
Let's
We
go.
got it. um, so how did you yeah, so let's dive into your story. How did you like when did you start singing and playing guitar? How old were you then?
Okay, so I started guitar. I got an acoustic in high school, and I've always liked the acoustic guitar. And honestly, so I played piano. I took piano lessons from like first grade all the way to, oh man, sophomore year or something like that. And I was like, I always wanted to play guitar, so I think my dad and I bought one, and I just started picking around. YouTube was kind of a thing still, back way back then.
Yeah.
And so I just find like tutorials and stuff and just kind of self-taught. And at least in my experience, we had there's always a need like at the church when I was playing. And so like they were like, we need an acoustic player. So I was like, all right, so I'll just get good enough to be on stage.
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of just I did piano, I did acoustic guitar, I did bass. I picked up an electric at one point. I haven't played that in quite a while, but
Yeah.
singing, dude, singing, I didn't start until, oh man, I was like early 20s, which sounds super crazy. Um, but I was
Yeah,
doing all
honestly,
this,
it's
dude,
probably the same for me, dude. It's
really,
really the same, yeah. You start with
it's
the guitar and then you're like, all right, I have to like learn how to or you kind of naturally just start singing to stuff.
right. I was
Yeah.
like my dad sang my entire life. He was part of, so it's him and like my uncles and stuff sang a
Yeah.
ton growing up. And so I'd help them like load in gear. They sang at like churches and stuff in the local area. And
Yeah.
I'd help them load in. I'd watch them sing all the time. And I was like, I'm never gonna sing. I don't want to do that. Um, but doing all the music stuff that I did growing up, somebody, I think it was my like youth pastor at one point, he was like, why don't you sing? And I was like, I don't know. Let's just go for it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And so I started singing. I was like, I kind of like this, And there's a lot to it, but one thing led to another. And I put
Yeah.
all my guitar stuff and then put the singing together. And I was like, let's do farmers markets. And then let's do, I think I booked a few gigs. And you talk about promoters a lot on your Instagram. One
Yeah.
of them just walked by me at a farmers market and was like, "Hey man, who books your gigs?" And I was like, at the time, I was like, "What a stupid question." I still tell people that. I was like, what a dumb thing." I'm like, obviously I do. Like, and so he handed me a card. He's like, "Can you do a 3 hour gig?" And I was like, in my head, there's no way. I was like, maybe an hour, unless
Right,
I
right.
recycle a bunch of stuff. But I was like, yeah, I could do 3 hours. And he's like, I'll give you a call. And I was like, yeah, whatever, sure. Well, he called me and I did my first 3 hour gig, and I'm pretty sure I did the same set like three times. Like the first
Yeah.
hour, I repeated it. But I got paid for it. And So
Yeah, you
honestly, I've
still
been,
did it.
yeah,
You still took it. That's
I
good.
did. But yeah, man, there's a lot of just say yes, just jump into it. At least in my case, can you do this thing? I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, and they kind of like when you say it too, it's like it's kind of like you're a little scared and they can kind of tell, but then it's just like when you put yourself out there, people will give you a chance usually.
That's for
You know,
sure.
they understand it, and I mean, yeah, it pushes you to learn more songs too. Like you're like, oh, okay, I have an hour set. I have to play 3 hours now, so I should probably learn some at least some more songs. Like maybe
Right.
not 3 hours worth, but it pushes you, definitely
Oh
pushes you,
yeah, that's
and
for sure.
that's cool. So you kind of just got thrown into it, and then dang. So what kind of stuff were you playing? Like, is it more country, or is it what kind of stuff were you learning?
So I learned, let's see, when I started at farmers markets, I kind of just picked songs that I liked. Um, I kind of, so my style, I would put it, I tell people always ask me, what kind of music do you play? And I play, so like Jason Mraz, Chris Stapleton, Michael Bublé, kind of just like your
Yeah.
typical, like One Republic, I love them. But just
Mhm.
like songs that you'd hear walking through a grocery store, um, like stuff like that. I'm not a huge country fan for some reason. I
Really?
like, um, it's kind of funny because a ton of people, there's lots of country up here, but I don't love it. There's some, like I'll play, Tennessee Whiskey or like, Knee Deep by Zach Brown Band or Chicken Fried, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But like the really thick country, I'm like, dude, that's not my thing. It's really not.
Do
Um,
you get that
so I,
requested a lot in Kansas?
um, I'm trying to think the most requested song, Tennessee Whiskey's up there.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
oh man. So it's kind of funny. So watching your Instagram, it kind of gave me some confidence to like, ask the crowd, hey, what kind of music do you want to hear tonight? And honestly, I do that quite a bit. And
Hmm.
usually I'll play, I don't know, let's say I play half an hour and I'll ask people that question. They're like, honestly, we like what you're playing already. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I guess that's a good thing. But I actually printed off, I typed up all the songs that I know and
yeah,
definitely from your recommendation. And I tell people, I'm like, hey, I have a song list if you want to pick. And sometimes I do.
yeah.
Sometimes they're like, I'm good. I'm here with my date. I'm cool. But
Yeah, because then
and
they
some
know
of those,
they have to tip you. That's why
right,
they
right.
say
I
that.
think that's probably why. Usually I say
Yeah,
no pressure, no pressure. Because I'm like, dude, if people want to tip, that's cool. If not, you know, I get paid by the venue.
right.
Obviously, tips are good. I'm not gonna if somebody tries to tip me, I'm definitely gonna say thank you.
Right.
So, but
Yeah,
no, man,
absolutely.
but yeah, for me personally, I just play a lot of middle of the road stuff. Lots of pop, you know. Um,
Yeah, Maroon 5 always goes over well, like
yes,
Coldplay and stuff like that. Yeah, all the pop stuff does really well. Even yeah, and for anyone like listening that does have like a 1 hour set or a 2 hour set and is starting to add more songs, and I don't know, printing out your set list that like it works when you have uh I don't know, it depends how long your set is. Like you definitely want a lot of songs on there, but then I don't know, you're also just giving the people the right to choose so that it feels like they're a part of it, and
right.
it's like this it's kind of like an excuse to like talk with them too, you
It
know?
is. One
Like
thing. Oh,
yeah. No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I have a buddy down in Fort Worth, Texas,
Mhm.
and he comes up to Wichita quite a bit. And one thing I took from him, I saw him at a show. Oh man, it's probably been 2 years now. But he did like he talked to the crowd just a little bit, and then he gave people basically like an A or B. Do you guys want to hear, Zach Brown band or Sabrina Carpenter or something?
Right.
And so that kind of gave people the option. I do that with.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I'll do it with Justin Bieber. Do you guys want to hear Justin Bieber or? And I pause. Everybody hates on Justin Bieber. I don't know why. Like no matter where I go, they're
Yeah.
like, "Boo!" I'm like, dude, the guy has like 70 million monthly listeners. I know y'all are listening. I know you.
Totally. Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, it just depends where you are. Like,
for
yeah, it just
sure.
depends the crowd. Like, yeah, Justin Bieber would pop off in some venues,
Yeah,
Yeah, I do this thing where kind of similar to that. I just say, do you guys want another country song or you want me to switch it up? I always say that. You
sure.
want me to switch it up? And they'll tell you, you know. And
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of interesting that you say that because the audience usually tells you what they want in a
yep,
weird way. And when you don't interact with them, it's like you're kind of just guessing, really.
right.
And which is fine, for some stuff you're more background music and you don't need to interact. But then yeah, talking to the audience is such a interesting thing, especially when I just remember like when I first started, like talking to the audience is weird. It
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 is weird.
really because like people assume that since you're singing on the mic, it's like easy to talk on the mic, and
Nope.
all of a sudden banter is super easy, but it's not like that.
Yeah,
And you kind of have to figure out at least like some some lines or something, some pre-made lines, or figure out some
yeah,
ways to like joke with the crowd to get you loosened up and them loosened up so then they could start requesting stuff, or I
right.
just remember having to go through that process, and I don't know if you did the same, but yeah,
Dude, I feel like I'm still in that. It's hard. It's
same.
hard for me to talk on the mic.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure about like the majority of your gigs, but I do a lot of restaurants,
yeah,
especially like this time of year. Um, there's a lot of like the patios aren't open because it's cold still. And
right.
so I'm doing like, high-end steakhouses and there's a few country clubs and stuff in there. And depending on the club, it's you get pretty good involvement, but sometimes, man, people just want to eat or, kind of be left alone. And so
Totally.
it's hard to come in, am I too loud? Am I picking the right songs? And then you try to talk and like nobody responds or something, and you're like, are they digging it? Like should I just keep going? So it's
Yeah.
tough. And then what do I say? Usually when I start talking, I personally am just like, I sound like an idiot. I don't rather just sing, you guys enjoy the music. You guys don't want to hear this guy talk.
Yeah, yeah, it's so venue dependent. And yeah, because like a lot of the restaurant gigs, it's like I don't really talk that much. It's more kind of fit the vibe of the restaurant. And if anyone requests something, definitely try it. But
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
sometimes the volume or something, like you'll plug into like the house speakers or something, or you'll have it at a low volume, and sometimes it's not at a good volume to even talk to the crowd. Like
Right.
some of the lounges that I play, they want you to like just be loud and entertaining and keep people there and talk with them and all that stuff.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, it's so venue dependent. Yeah. But yeah, talking on the mic, it's like it's interesting because it kind of gets in your head a little bit. It's like you're not used to talking on a mic, so like us talking right now, it's fine and it seems like
Sure.
easy. But then when you're talking on a mic and everything's amplified, it's like, oh man, you really hear yourself, and I still stumble
That's for
over my
sure.
words and stuff. But even some guys out here in Vegas, like there's the guys that are really good at like looping and stuff, and they don't talk that much. Like they're decent at
Hmm.
talking to the crowd. And then there's the other guys that are like almost like half comedians, half musicians that are
Right.
like that are really great at just joking with the crowd, kind of getting everyone riled up. And they'll still do songs and stuff like that. But a lot of it's almost like 70 or 80% of their show is that banter and
Wow.
comedic act. It's interesting.
That's interesting. I don't know if we have anybody like that up here. Like we, I think, was it on Instagram? You text or messaged me, said something about like the scene up here. Like
Yeah.
one thing, like the scene in Wichita is very interesting. You have, so it's kind of like a hub in some regard. Like it's the surrounding areas are pretty small, but Wichita itself is pretty large,
Mm.
and it supports live music like really well. You have you
Well,
have an
that's
like
cool.
a decent original music crowd. Um, I'm part of like the cover music scene, and there's only like a handful of like cover artists, I would say, that
Mm.
are like single people. There's a couple like duos, um, and then like several bands and stuff, but it's very like it's kind of small. Like it's a small list of people, and we all
Hmm.
just kind of go around like this like circuit, if you will.
Yeah.
And but honestly, like the Wichita really supports it. And I've heard people like I just met a guy from Colorado, met some people from Kansas City, um, like Texas, and they come to Wichita and they're like, "Man, you guys pay your musicians really well." Because like where I'm from, we don't get paid as much as you guys. And I'm like, really? That's what I'm used to,
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
So that's one thing I'm learning. I'm like, I think that's why I was able to, kind of go at it for so long. I'm like, man, they pay well. You don't have a ton of like, you know, maybe I just don't play at those places where, well, tonight was kind of rough, so I'm only going to pay you half of what I told you, or like having
Oh
issues
yeah.
with like, getting paid or something.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. What
Thankfully,
is your guys's what's your guys's like typical pay structure there?
so like when I tell people like when you play at, um, so we have this place called, see, it's like a Mediterranean place, and they have what 4 locations here in Wichita, and they're really expanding. Like the guys building them all out, and I think it's standard, but here like that starts at like 170. That's kind of like a standard, you know, um, at least rate that they would pay.
Hmm.
Then there's like high-end
Is that for
steakhouses.
is that for 3 hours or what is
Yeah,
that?
for three
Okay.
hours. Yeah,
Okay.
and so that's kind of, I would say that's kind of like a base. That's like the lowest that I would get paid.
Okay.
And then like steakhouses would be a little bit more than that.
Right, right.
Sometimes like then you have like your country clubs, but then you have like your private events, and I don't know if you
Yep.
structure them this way, but like it's an hourly rate. So if
Hmm.
somebody sees me at one of these events, they could say, hey, I have a backyard party coming up, or birthday or retirement or whatever. How much do you charge? I'm like, well, it's X amount hourly, and a lot of times, man, people pay it, which is why I have a job.
Right, right. Yeah,
So it's super
especially
good.
yeah, especially for the corporate stuff or the private event stuff. It's sometimes I just do like a flat fee. Like if they say that they need me for 3 or 4 hours, I'll just give them like a flat fee. Um, yeah, but yeah, that's interesting. Usually it's here in Vegas, and I've seen, yeah, it really depends like where you're at because I know Nashville has a different pay structure. They're mostly based on tips. I know like Austin, Texas, and other stuff, they pay them differently. In Vegas, it's usually like $100 an hour for like the
Gotcha.
typical gigs, um, plus the tips or whatever. And then corporate stuff can like range because there's a lot of like conferences and stuff that come through here. Um, but yeah, I feel like for the most of the places that I've been, it's been around like $100 an hour or something like that.
Yeah,
For
that's pretty standard.
yeah, I feel like
Um,
that's pretty common. But
Plus like tips and stuff. I don't know. Do you have like a promoter or manager that gets chunkier gigs, or are you pretty much independent at this point?
no, I have a few bookers that I
Okay,
work with. Yeah, and they book most of my gigs. They have a bunch of venues because there's so many venues in Vegas that are
I'm
all
sure.
yeah, and there's a bunch of bookers in town. It's kind of small, like how you're talking about. Like everyone kind of knows each other. So if someone needs to fill a gig, it's like everyone kind of knows who's in the network. And
Right.
but yeah, there's a lot of bookers in town, and all the bookers have a lot of venues.
That's
Um,
cool.
so
Do they all
yeah,
take about like the same percentage out typically, or does it sort of just depend?
some of them. That's kind of the interesting side of the booking side, and probably not a lot of musicians even know about the that part of it where the venue will pay the booker a certain amount, and then the booker takes their cut and pays you a certain amount. And it's
Right.
um, typically, I think what's fair is like 10 to 15%. I
Right.
would say is like that's common, but yeah, I've heard like other stories of like people taking 50% or
Oh
25%,
man.
or just kind of taking advantage of like the musicians that don't know what's going
Sure.
on. They'll just take anything, and that
Yeah.
happens. That's definitely happened to me where you're just like, yeah, okay, I'll play it, and then you find out that the venue paid the booker like twice as much or something. It's
Like,
crazy.
what the heck?
That doesn't
Right.
happen. That doesn't happen a lot. That
Yeah.
happens. that yeah, most bookers are fair, but yeah, is that the
Yeah.
same for do you work with bookers?
Yeah, I do. So I have one booker essentially in Wichita, and he's the one who saw me at the farmer's market. And
Oh, cool.
yeah, he was just like, so it's him, and so it's basically two guys, and they have like a small team that work with them as well, doing social media stuff, um, Facebook, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, 15% is kind of what they take. That's an average.
Yeah.
Um, and it's funny, like when people ask that question, at least locally, they're like, dude, why don't you just work for yourself? And I'm like, as I've been doing it for a while, that makes sense. But I also, if I wasn't for this guy, I was like, I wouldn't be integrated like I am.
Right.
And the volume at which, like, I tell people, I'm like, dude, I'll be at home on, let's say it's the 28th of last month. And he'll be like, here's what March looks like. He just gives me like X amount of dates. And I'm like, well, all these work except for this, this, and this. And he's like, cool, let's do it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's like guaranteed pay, you know?
Right.
And so you get into those places, you play, you make your tips, and then you're meeting people on top of that. And then it just feeds into the next, hey, I got this private event or this or that. And what's cool about it is he'll book me at a lot of these restaurants. And if something else that might pay more comes up, he'll call me and just go, hey, you're not going to do that cheap one anymore. And he goes, I got a better paying gig for you on the same
That's
day
awesome.
or same night. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So
Yeah.
it's stuff like that
That's
where I'm like, dude, it's definitely worth my time. It's worth the percentage he takes out.
hmm
Doesn't make me upset.
Right, right. As long as you're getting paid, you're happy with your pay. And
Right.
yeah, I think that partnership and that relationship is super important. It makes it so much more efficient and like easier for you, you know.
It does.
Yeah. And that's so what was your transition like going from starting to play gigs to being like a full-time musician?
Hard.
Was it?
That was a rough go. So I told you I'm 31. Um, let's see. I worked a job out of high school for 9.5 years, which was completely, it was a good job, but I was like, I got to do something else. And I didn't know what that was. I struggled with like, I didn't really go to school for anything specifically. So anyway, I was kind of going through this whole thing of I gotta jump ship, I gotta do something right during COVID. And so I had a buddy of mine, he came up, he's like, hey, you need to come work with me. And he was selling insurance. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so I did that for about 6 months. Hated it, just completely hated it. And at that 6 month mark, that's when Wichita opened up. So that was April of 2021. So basically, like all the restaurants were like, hey, we're open and we want live music everywhere. And I had done a few gigs. Like I said, I was doing a few farmers markets here and there.
Mhm.
Um, I did a super small like singing competition at one point, and I ended up winning that. I was like, I got some confidence.
Yeah.
And so anyway, April of 2021, that guy I was telling you about called me. He goes, hey, here's what the whole month of April looks like. And I was like, that pays my bills. And so
Whoa, yeah.
I said, let's do it. My wife was like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm gonna pay our bills. Let's do it. And honestly, I thought I'm gonna give this maybe 3 months total. And I've been doing it ever since. It's one of those things, and I've loved it. It's been
Wow.
so much fun, but the transition itself was really tough because it's like you had super heavy months of like, oh my gosh, I made pretty good money, and
Right.
other times, man, like winter here is really tough. So
Right.
April through like, let's see, October, November, we're okay. But like
Right.
December, January, February, March, I was like, do I get a part-time job? Like, what am I doing?
Right. Right.
But then April hit, and I was like, all right, so I've kind of gotten the cycle down, and I'm integrated enough where people are calling me a lot more, which is super good. I have a
Right.
few consistent gigs that I play out weekly. Um, so it's a lot more, uh, um, what do they call that? Where you can just
Consistent.
rely on. yeah, very consistent. And so yeah, I'm very thankful at this point. But year one, it was just up and down. Just it was
Yeah, so
crazy.
you were selling insurance and you were just over it? Like was there
Yeah, dude. I did not like it. So I like talking to people. Um,
yeah.
but it's like cold calling. I don't know if you've ever had to do anything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of
Sucks.
funny. Like I thought I didn't like sales, but if it was selling me as a musician, I'm like, let's go because I know what I can offer. But insurance, I had to walk into businesses and like people are like at the front desk working, and I would just walk in and I'd be like, hey, do you want to talk about this thing I'm selling? And they're like, no, I don't want to talk about that. And so you get yelled at, you get kicked out of places, like, and so it's just day in, day out. It was brutal. And just
Yeah.
hated life at that point.
Yeah, those that first year is always that transition is always scary, and then that first year is always just kind of you just have a lot of like fear and doubt, you know, because you don't.
Yeah,
But then the cool thing is you just go for it, you know, like
right.
that's like the defining moment, you know. It's
It really
but then
is.
but then you look back and you're like, what if you stayed selling insurance, you know?
Exactly.
How different your life would be, and maybe your happiness level, you know, maybe you'd be a lot more unhappy. I don't know.
I would
Yeah.
definitely be unhappy. I can tell you that.
Yeah, so yeah, I think like well every person that I have on the podcast, I like to hear their timeline because there's always like a few pivotal moments in the timeline where you're like whether it's either you like meet someone like your booker or there's a certain decision that you make that they're just such big decisions that like if you didn't make those or
Right.
if you didn't meet that person or if like you know it's just like those very pivotal moments and I like to point those out because sometimes we forget about them, you know.
Yeah. But dude, I'll tell you, this line of work, I I even still struggle sometimes. I'm like, because it's abnormal, especially at a local level, to just be doing this consistently. Like
Hmm.
people ask, like, what do you do? Because at least around here, like you have a lot of like aircraft workers, a lot of like
Mm.
business people, business types, and even like friends, like close friends and stuff. They have 8 to 5 type jobs. And
Yeah,
I just have the weirdest schedule, but I love it.
right,
But when
right.
people ask, they're like, what do you do for work? And I'm like, I'm a musician. And they're like, what? Like, it doesn't even compute. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, what
Right.
does that mean? You know?
Yeah.
Um, but it's so much fun, dude. I've met so many people. Like, I've had so many crazy experiences just at a local level. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I love it. It's so much fun. I love singing. So I'm like, I
What
wouldn't
is,
trade it for anything.
what is a have you had any crazy gigs? Anything crazy happen?
Yeah. Um, I had to, let's narrow it down. I don't know. I play for a lot of like wealthy people. So you see like some crazy houses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, Probably still the craziest that I've had. I think it was the first year that I got into, I think it's 2021. Um, I didn't have any clue like what private parties were as far as like getting hired for that.
Hmm.
And somebody messaged me, let's get this situated. And they're like, "Hey, I'm playing in this party for this group. They're raising money for something." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And so I showed up, and it was a big house, you know, whatever set up. I played a Andy Grammer song. If you know who Andy Grammer, do you
No,
play any
who's
of his
that?
stuff? He
No.
has like "Honey, I'm Good." No, no, honey, I'm good. I gotta have another, but I probably
Mm.
should not.
Yeah,
A
I've heard
bunch
that
of
song.
yeah. But I played, I think it was Fresh Eyes by that guy, and they were like, "Hey, we love Andy Grammer. He's the best." And they basically there was a guy there who goes, "Hey, I love Andy Grammer, and I want you at my party here in a few weeks." And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And he goes, "I'm going to hire you." And he goes, "I'm actually flying Andy Grammer out from LA." And I was like the guy who sang that song goes, "Yeah." I was like, "You're in Wichita?" He's like, "Yeah." I was
Oh
like, "What?"
wow.
And so I was very unexperienced. Um, I, you know, just me and an acoustic guitar, essentially. Like I was just okay. And he was like, basically, I came and played. I think I played an hour, Worth maybe, and Andy was there. Like he's a full-on pop star. Like he's made it, you know.
Oh wow. You're right,
And
right.
so him and his wife just like chilled and listened to me play. And on top of that, like the people who hired me were like ultra wealthy, like insane, but the sweetest people. And so I played and they said, "Hey, you're gonna stay for dinner, right?" And I was like, I mean, it's not my party. So I don't know, am I? And they're like, you need to invite your wife and call her right now, invite your wife and you can come eat with us. And I was like, all right. And so it was like 14 people, like pretty prominent in at least in my city. And then
Mhm.
Andy and his wife, Asia, and super down to earth people. But you know, if you look him up, dude, he's got like I don't know, 8 million monthly listeners. Like he's
Wow, that's
successful.
cool.
Like he's on TV. Um, but super
Whoa.
cool guy. I was able to talk to him for just a little bit,
Did he
and
come up and do a song with you?
no, he didn't.
Oh, dang.
It was kind of funny leading up to that whole thing. The guy who hired me goes, "Dude, you have to sing an Andy Grammer song," and I was like, "I'm not gonna sing his songs in front of that guy. Like, there's no way." And but no, he didn't sing that night. But the next night they were doing it was like a private concert, and they
Mhm.
actually invited us out to that as well. So
Whoa.
it was like you couldn't buy tickets for it. It was like a need to know kind of basis. But
Yeah,
we
yeah.
went, and it was honestly, it's kind of like a movie. It just we felt really special, and it was just, especially my
Wow.
wife and I both got to experience it. It wasn't just me by myself, which is
Right.
typical. Usually, I come home, I'm like, here's what happened tonight, and she's like, cool,
Yeah,
But
that's yeah,
it's
what a
this
wild
was
story.
it was so crazy. So definitely, still
Yeah,
probably one of the wildest things.
that's the coolest thing is you never know who knows who or
I
like
know.
what's gonna happen, like I don't know. Yeah, you go play these parties and then yeah, you just don't know who their friends are or you don't know who they know or who's gonna show up. Really.
That's for
Like
sure.
yeah, it's such a yeah, it's such a
Do
cool
you
thing.
Do you get like a lot of like when you go play private events, do you get a lot of crazy stuff out in Vegas?
Um Private events, not so much. A lot of the crazy stuff happens in like the lounges and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Just your drunk people or like
Right.
I don't know. Everyone's, Vegas is a party city, so there's definitely more of it here than probably anywhere. But um
Do you get tipped
yeah.
pretty well in a lounge? Like with when people get really rowdy?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Do you?
everyone's yeah, it really depends. Like, I don't know. This one time I was playing this lounge, and there was just like I think he was just super drunk, but he just kept giving me hundreds. And he ended up
Nice.
giving me like $700 or something that night.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, that's super rare, but like, yeah, some people just I don't know. It really depends on like where you play too. Like, I don't know. Some of like the basic lounges, people just tip like 5, 10,
Sure.
50 bucks or something. Then you go to like the more high-end lounges and there you'll more likely like you can see everyone walking in with like, the nice watches and stuff like that. And they'll tip like
That's cool.
hundreds and stuff like that. It really depends where, but yeah, I don't know. You kind of get that random stuff. Like even some of the venues that we play, there'll be random celebrities that show up just because they're all here for their shows. So
Right.
like some of the venues, like Bruno Mars has showed up, or like just a
Oh
bunch of
man.
random like Macy Gray and a bunch of artists that you don't really get to talk to them, but I don't know. Yeah, it's like you said earlier, it's like you never know who they know or like
Right.
what their network is. And that's what's so cool about um, meeting all these people at their parties and even like you getting hired for that one private party. It's like you get to meet all of their friends at that party,
Right.
possibly, right? Like you take a break and then you get to go meet all of them and then that one guy hired you for the next party and then
That's
you get to
exactly how this was.
yeah, and
It's
it's really like all of your networks are just like cross-pollinating and
yeah.
it's such a cool thing because
Yeah.
that's how opportunities happen.
That's for sure, man.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
Yeah, a really cool thing that I like to do, um, especially for networks is, uh, to trace back how you met that person.
That's a good
or
idea.
like how you ended up meeting that rich family that had the party or whatever. You like make like a almost like a web of how you know everyone, and
Right.
then you start to see like how it all is connected, and then you start to see who knows who, and then you're like, oh, like I'm like a few people away from just knowing this person. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know
Oh yeah.
how else to put that, but like even some of our friends, like they, one of my friends knows Dana White out here, the UFC owner, and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And it's like, oh, I'm literally like one contact away from that person, you know? And so
Yeah.
you start to see like the web, and you're like, oh,
That's
this is like,
crazy.
yeah, and really like it only, and that's what's cool about it is like you met that one person, and that was the one contact that got you to do this with that
Right.
famous artist. So it's like you're literally like one contact away from possibly a really cool thing, you know?
Right.
I don't know. I just like to think about it that
No,
way.
that's a good point. I don't know
Yeah.
if I've ever done that. At least my city, it's so small, especially with the people that would put out the money for a musician like me. You
Right.
know, um, I've met most of them. I would say at this point, whether or not they've hired me, that's one thing, but I've probably seen them at somebody's party, and they know
Yeah.
who I am, which is super cool. Usually somebody will reach out, "Hey, I saw you play at such and such party," or like this event, and I might not know them, but I'll see them. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." So it's just, you know, networking is huge. And
Hmm.
I don't know about you, like when you started, at least this is how it was for me. I was like I made cards and I was walking into businesses that I thought might do live music, and I was just
Hmm.
giving them cards, or I'd like reach out on Instagram because I was just trying to build that network essentially. Just please hire me, you know.
Right, right, right.
Um, but like going on to was this year 4, I guess, of really just getting after it.
Hmm.
2024 as a whole, it was so organic. Like people called me all the time. And so it's like, okay, I'm seeing like the fruit of that, of me like really pushing the first couple of years. And it
Right.
felt super good. Like, for my phone to be ringing this much, I'm like, this is cool, man. Like, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, you
So,
definitely, I mean, you put in the work. So that's,
yeah,
it's like the first couple years is always like that development stage where it's like you're trying
it
to get
really is.
songs, you're trying to sound good, you're trying to figure out your gear. It's like you're trying to figure everything out, and then you kind of hit like that I wouldn't say like a plateau, but like you hit like a good spot where you're like
Hmm.
people recognize that you've put in the work, and that I've seen a bunch of your videos. And I'm like, dude, you have a million songs. It sounds good. Your singing's killer. You have the right gear. It's like everything is like, and people recognize that after you put in
Yeah,
the work, and they're like, okay, this guy's professional. Sounds good. That's it. You're in.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a hard thing to get at. Like you said it on your Instagram, like there's no template for any of this. It's just say yes and you just show up and then you do it again and then you do it again. And each time you learn a little something,
Yeah.
like, wow, don't, like the first year it was just me and my acoustic guitar. Dude, that
Mhm.
got so boring. I was like, and that's when I got into the looper stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
nobody's doing, there's a guy who has like is it a Boss? It's like a two pedal, uh, like looper, super basic in town.
Yeah.
Um, but nobody's doing like I have it's the head rush looper board.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody's running that thing. Probably because it's discontinued at this point, but it's so good. I love it.
Yeah,
It's so
I want to
good.
talk to you about your gear journey, because like, so what did you start with, and then kind of go into what you're using now?
So when I started year 1, I had my Martin guitar. It's like a grand performing, just your basic acoustic guitar. And I'm trying to think early on, I might have had, so I think I poached my electric guitar rig and used like a reverb, maybe like a compressor because I thought I had to have one, and like a few other pedals. And I was like, cool, and I used that
Right.
for a little bit. Um, and I'm
What
trying to
speaker were
think.
you using?
So at the very beginning, I used a JBL Eon One. A
Okay.
buddy of mine had one. It's just one of those tower arrays,
Yeah.
and my buddy had it. He's like, "I'll sell it to you for 300 bucks." And I was like, "Deal, let's do it." So it's one of the, it packs up super nice. It sounded pretty good. So I used that. I'm trying to think, man. I think it was year two. I tried. Boss had a couple loopers that I tried. I'm pretty sure the head rush is like the third or fourth one that I tried. Um,
Really?
the other ones, I couldn't get behind it. I just didn't mesh with it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, man, the head rush.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
What made you
well,
land on the head rush?
so I think it was so there's a guy out of Nashville, Carl Walkner. I think I sent him.
Yeah.
Have you looked that guy up?
Yeah, he's great. His
Dude,
stuff
he's
is great.
insane.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think the whole time I was like, I can't copy people. But I was like, I was noticing the sounds that that guy was getting. And I was like, man,
Hmm.
that's crazy, dude. And so I got this head rush. And honestly, it still took me like 3 solid months of me just practicing with it to get used to it. It's
Mm.
hard. The learning curve is pretty steep, at least for me.
Hmm.
Um, but once I got it, I was like, this is cool. Like, this is different. I was able to kind of like side jaunt. Like people, they kind of talk down a little bit about cover artists, at least locally. They're like, "Well, you're playing other people's songs, or whatever." But at least for me, like the looper board, it allows me to do some instrumental stuff when I'm not singing, and then play a song like differently than what it was written like. And
Yeah.
so some people think it's got to be exactly, you know, how the song was written originally. And at least for me, that's kind of been my brand, I guess, of like everybody says, "Oh, J. Michael, he makes it his own." They say that all the time
Yeah.
because I'll take a song and make it, super different, slow it
It
down,
does
or like,
it does sound different in your videos. In such a good
yeah,
way, though. In such a good way
right,
that it's like, oh, he's that's like a cool rendition of that song. Yeah.
right. So like, and that's what I was trying. I was looking at my city, going, what are other people doing? I'm not trying to copy, and I was literally trying to be different. So I think
Yeah.
in my pursuit, that's why I ended up with the head rush. Um, and then there's just naturally the sound that came out. Like I
Yeah.
play Sunday Morning by Maroon 5, and I'm pretty sure I just created, uh, it's kind of a template with how I loop. Um, a lot of the loops kind of start sounding the same, but there's sort of a recipe to it. But
Hmm.
they sound solid. They sound pretty good. Um,
Yeah, your loops sound
all
great.
because of the head rush. The head rush is like, I still learn stuff about that board, so I'm still like growing into it.
Right.
Um, but
Is
yeah, so it's
there
a head rush. Oh, good.
what's like the way that you would like stack a song, or like what's like a typical way that you would do that?
So like when I build a loop, one thing that I know I struggle with is tempo. I'm so bad. I always go too fast.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
Same.
my
Yeah.
in my iPad, I usually put the BPM in the app that I use. And so it's just the metronome. I'll fire that up. And so I'll hear it click, click, click. And basically I'll loop almost like a metronome sound. So it'll be like a hi-hat. And I'll go
Yeah.
and do like a snare and just loop like a 6 second beat or whatever, and then
Right.
build everything around that. So I kind of start with drums. I'll put in a little bit of guitar. I'll do the bass. Um, I don't loop any vocals yet. I haven't really got to that point. I've struggled with that. I think it's the mix of it. It sounds kind of out of place when
Yeah.
I did it. Um, but I do have like a harmony pedal that I use quite a bit.
Yeah,
Um,
those are cool. Yeah, the vocals are tough. The vocals are like, especially
yeah,
getting it in the mix, and but yeah, I mean, you're already doing enough sounds and stuff that it sounds good. It sounds full. It's like it gets, it gets the idea across, and it's yeah.
right.
Yeah, the extra vocals would just be like sprinkles on top.
Yeah,
Yeah, you already got the main cake.
yeah. But it's fun, dude. It's like you do the same thing. You have your loops and then you solo on top. It's like it's
Yeah.
fun. It really is.
Yeah, it really is yeah, and like I just remember it took a while to like did you get most of your ideas from Carl Wachner, or was there, because there was, you just said that like there's not really anyone doing that in Kansas, huh?
Not that I've seen. Um, I don't know if anybody that I've seen uses that looper board. And
Yeah.
honestly, like I've tried to find on Instagram, there's just not a lot of support for it anymore. Um,
Because
here
it's
in
like
Loop,
you can't buy it, right? It's like they don't
no,
make them
it's
anymore.
they don't. You can find it on eBay.
Yeah, you have to
Like
get an E.
yeah, there's actually a guy locally wanting to sell one, and I'm like, I kind of want to get a second one for like a
Yeah.
secondary rig or something. But I'm seeing how long. I don't think anybody's gonna buy it. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm the
Yeah.
only dude who's like, maybe I'll buy this head rush.
Honestly,
Um,
you and Carl are the only guys that I've seen with it. But it's such a cool setup though. I get why you guys have it. It's
yeah.
it's yeah, I just got the RC 600. I'm gonna mess with that, but is it what do you use for your mixer?
So I have the speaker that I have now is the Electro Voice EV30, and it has a mixer
Okay,
built
cool.
in. Yeah. So like the videos you've heard is just a mix out of that mixer. I'm trying to work with. Have you seen the Behringer XR12 or like XR18? It's
Yeah, I
like
have one. That's what I just
yeah,
started using.
I
Yeah,
just like today I was messing with it, messing with mine in the garage, and I was like,
yeah.
this is super cool. Like, eventually, I'm probably going to be running that quite a bit. Um,
Yeah,
just
does the head rush have separate outs, like outputs, or is it
mhm.
just one? So you
Yeah.
can,
So you have four inputs and then four outputs.
oh, that's perfect. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
then you could just EQ everything separately with the
Right.
XR. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's super cool, and it's hard to get the gain stages right, and even
Hmm.
literally today I'm still struggling with like because I want a really good mix to be able to share on Instagram and stuff like that. And if you
Right.
don't have all your gain stages right, I keep finding that like my mixes, I think the gain's just too high. Like you can hear it distorting a little bit, like the vocals. And so in
Huh.
theory, you want it kind of just, you know, stair stepped, I guess. And so there's
Right.
so much in the head rush. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to check that or like check this before I hit record.
Oh, right, right.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to get the what app are you using on your iPad to do the mixer, the digital mixer?
It's called, so I use for like lyrics and I don't use chords a whole lot. But for the lyrics and like the tempo and stuff, it's called On Song.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I meant for the mixer.
oh, for the so the EV has a mixer like app built in, so it uses Bluetooth. And
Or I mean for the XR.
oh, what is that app? I think it's whatever app they recommend. It's like is it called XAir? Maybe
Yeah, maybe there's like you might want to check out Mixing Station. Um,
mixing station.
I literally just started using it and my other buddy is using it too. And it's uh I don't know. It's just laid out better for like a bunch of audio engineers use it, but um it's been
Gotcha.
awesome. Like
I'll have to
it's
check that out.
really, yeah, it's really like you just have like your buses on one tab, you have like your main mix on the other. It's like very just laid out. And I think it's only like $5 or something like that, but it's really good. Um
I'll have to check that
yeah,
out.
I don't know. I've been using that, but yeah, that way you could go in and I don't know, for anyone listening that doesn't know what we're talking about, there's like usually out of the looper or whatever you're sending to your speaker, you can have one out. So it's just all of the sounds, the guitars, the bass, the drums, all going to like one out. And then you could do it separately. So you have the drums on one out and the bass on one out and the guitars on one out and your vocals on one out. So then in your mixer, you can EQ and compress everything separately. So you can really find like a good balance between everything and EQ the bass so it's not interfering with the drums so much, and
Right.
a lot of really cool stuff, and it makes it sound so much better. Like you don't
It does.
realize how muddy things can sound when it's all just one out.
Right.
And and yeah,
Dude,
such a cool idea.
I think a good EQ honestly separates good musicians from the great. If especially if
Yeah.
you're mixing your own sound, like if you come in and your sound is just dialed in, you know, no one frequency is just slapping people in the face or whatever. Like people
Right.
notice that. People don't know what they're
Yeah.
talking about. Like, can you turn it down? You know, sometimes I'll get
Right.
that, and it's like a sound guy would go, dude, like this one frequency is ringing out. Let's dial that down. But most people like it's just too loud. It's
Yeah.
like well, maybe it is, but like, if you dialed in your vocal a little bit, there's just a lot to it. But EQ is a huge part of live music. Um,
Yeah. It's been I don't know how much you guys plug into like the restaurant speakers or like the house speakers too, but like I found out that that is also just a really good way to divide the two. So like for anyone listening, usually you run like to your normal monitor speaker, like your Bose tower, and then you have a separate signal going to the house speakers. And the way that you're talking about, you can EQ the sound that goes to your monitor and EQ that and shape that sound however you want, but then you could also shape the sound that's coming through the house speakers. So the house speakers, they might be smaller, they might not want as much bass in there, so you can literally walk around, you can loop something,
mhm.
walk around the venue, get your monitor and Bose tower all set up sounding at a decent volume, and then you can walk around with your iPad and EQ the house speakers so they're not just like blasting through the,
Right.
not just volume, but you can EQ it and compress it a little bit to where it sounds good through the house speakers, so you're not blowing their speakers out. Um, I feel like that was like a, I don't know, because there's some like restaurants here. I don't know what is up with their speakers, but they sound horrible, and so like
Yeah.
they just sound like super woofy and super bassy, and I'm like, if you just send a signal to that, it just automatically sounds bad. So you have to shape it yourself because they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
I don't know.
I don't plug into a lot of systems locally. There's
Yeah.
one venue, I don't play there very often. Um, but I played there twice, I think. It's like their second location. So I played at the first one quite a bit, and they said, "Hey, let's play at the second." Well, they put in their own system, and I went in, and it's like I've kind of shaped my whole sound off my speaker. Everything is dialed for that setup. And they said,
Mm.
"Hey, you don't need your speaker." And I said, "Oh, cool." So I went in, and it's just the sound was really sad. Like my
Yeah.
loops and stuff like weren't coming through, and I could like barely hear my vocal. And so it was like a 2 hour show, and I was like, that sucked. That was just not fun.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, at least me, I kind of feel like a prima donna or something of like, no, I have to have my own stuff. But it's like, I'm prepared. I know I'm trying to bring you the best sound that I can bring you.
Yeah.
And, it's less work for you, I guess. Um,
Yeah. No, that's exactly. I'm honestly the same way. Like, because you get used to that, and then you perform better that way.
right,
Like when you go through someone else's sound, it's like I don't know, you're thinking about how it sounds the whole time and how you could fix
right,
stuff, and so it takes away from the performance, and then if you can't hear yourself singing that well because it's just coming through the house speakers, it's like
right.
you're ruining your voice, and it's like, yeah, I totally
Then
get
you're
that.
frustrated.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, whenever I could. Do you wear in-ears or do you just listen to your monitor?
I tried in-ears for a little bit, and
Yeah.
I'm on such a small scale that I don't really need them,
Yeah.
honestly. The one time they came in handy though is there was like a big nonprofit event that was an outdoor huge stage, like a professional sound company came in, put in these, I mean, it was like, full on concert level, sound system. And they said, "Hey, we want you to play for an hour or whatever." And I was like, "Sweet," on this ginormous stage.
Yeah.
It's funny because like nobody was there to hear music. It was basically just me going, "Wow, I'm on this stage." But I was using in-ears, and there was like a sound crew and everything, which was like, I'm like, dude, this is nuts. And so I plugged in, and I'm playing, and like the kick drum when I was looping and everything sounded epic. I was like, dude, this is
Yeah.
crazy. So I was playing while I was listening to my in-ears. Well, in the meantime, I don't know what happened, but the house sound just got cut. Like there was no house sound whatsoever. And so like the
Man.
sound guys were flipping out, and I was able to hear like, oh, like the house sounds off, but I had my in-ears and I just kept playing. And I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
that's not my problem, you know? Like
Right.
they were figuring it out off stage or whatever. And
Yeah.
ever after a while, it came back on, but I was like, that was kind of a cool. I was able to stay on it, not go, well, I guess I'll stop playing for a while. I
Right.
just kept on playing. But
Yeah.
no, like I tried it for a while, like having a metronome. It's like a click track.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just it was kind of just more work than it needed to be to have it. I know how it works. I have a system if I ever have to use it in ears, but I just don't. I don't use
Yeah.
them.
Honestly, yeah, we have the almost the same journey, dude. Yeah. I tried the in-ears for a while too, and it works at some spots, but
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. I You get so used to listening to the speaker and how it sounds,
right.
like you really,
If you had a sound guy, you could rely on your in-ear mix a lot more. But
yeah.
like when you're constantly going, you know, at least for me, I'm like, oh, are the frequencies good? Like
Mhm.
I'm I'm listening to my speaker and I'm watching people eat and I'm trying to notice if they're like trying to get closer to the person they're trying to talk to. And I'm like, is it too loud? Is it so you're constantly
Yeah.
like going through that stuff. If I was in my in-ear mix just like jamming out, I think people would be pissed.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to tell the dynamics in the ears.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah, it's hard to tell how loud you're being, or the kind of like the attack on your guitar or your vocals or something.
Right.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Yeah, and even like, oh man, sometimes out here I'll play with like bands just playing lead guitar, and a lot of the venues that we'll play at will do in-ears, and it's such a difference when you have a good audio guy and a bad
Yes.
audio guy. Like, just the front of house sounds better, but then also your in-ear mixes sound better. It's like it's so hard to play a show when you can't hear yourself, whether that's in ears or
So true.
bad sound at a venue, or it's like, oh man, that's, yeah, it's crazy. So I don't
Right.
know. It's, yeah, anyone who's, even like some corporate gigs, like they'll ask you what you need and be very specific with that. And I'm not telling you this, I'm telling just anyone who's listening, that's like,
Mhm.
be very specific. Say that you need a mixer with reverb and delay, and you
Yeah.
need two monitors, and you need a mic and a mic stand, and you need exactly the PA that you want, or be very specific, because they'll give you the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And
That's for sure.
you'll be stuck playing that gig with no effects, everything completely dry, and you can't hear yourself because you didn't order a monitor and stuff like that. That's happened. So yeah,
Do you play a
that's
lot of gigs where like you have to state, you know, I need these speakers, I need this mixer? Like,
no, usually I bring my own stuff.
yeah,
And yeah, usually I bring my own stuff. A lot of the times we'll plug into the house. Sometimes we won't, and you know, I'll play super loud. I just got a wireless for my guitar, so a lot of times I'll just loop something and I'll go walk out and see how loud it is. And
what's not to derail you, what wireless unit did you get?
I forgot what it's called. It's the Sennheiser E.
Okay.
Let me see what it is. Let me see if I could
I've
look it
gone
up.
through three of like the cheap Amazon sets. If
Yeah,
anybody's listening, debating, I'm in a gig with these things. Just don't buy them. They don't
really.
work. They work for a little bit, but battery life is an issue, and then just
Yeah,
longevity. They're made if you're using them in your house or something, it's cool.
yeah.
But I think I went through three sets before I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pay a couple $100. I don't know how much yours was, but
Mine was it's the Sennheiser EWD, and they're pretty pricey. They're like
EWD.
5 or 600 bucks, but those are like,
Yeah,
that's like the, I mean, I got it for the band stuff too, because we play a lot of those stages and you're just running around the lounges like messing with people and
right.
stuff. But those it's like been awesome. It's like you can run 100 feet and it still has signal.
Yeah,
A
there's
lot of people don't need that though, but like That's the one I got though. EWD, Sennheiser
I'll have to
EWD. It's
I'll
been
have to check that out.
dude, it's been awesome. But yeah, it's
That's
like
cool.
most yeah, most musicians don't even need it. I was kind of hesitant, but it was just for those band gigs. And then I started using it for my acoustic gigs and I was like, oh, I can like just walk out there now and listen to
Yeah,
what they're listening to and I could just run around and solo and I don't know. So it's been fun,
that's cool. That's
but
fun.
yeah. Yeah. Dude, this has been really cool to
Yeah, man.
hear your story and it's so cool to like I remember when I first started the Instagram page, it's like everyone is like gigging around the world, like
Yeah,
in different states and in Europe and Australia and stuff like that. So it's man, it's cool to I think I've only been to Kansas once too. I think we did like a record in Nashville one time and we drove through Kansas, I think. It was super pretty. It was like a bunch of green, like because I'm in the desert. So like
right.
whenever I see a lot of green like Nashville or North Carolina or anything like that, man, I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like,
Signs
yeah.
of life.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a
Yeah.
lot of nothing, honestly. There's a lot of just fields and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like Wichita. It's definitely there's a ton of people here that use it as like a springboard. It's like I want to raise my family here, but then
Yeah.
travel. It's like it's very centrally located. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm always gigging, so I don't get out very much. I think
Dude, yeah.
weren't you and I talking? We were talking like end of the year. I really wanted to make it out to Vegas because I'm like, I've never been. I've had all my friends like, you need to go see it. I'm like, yeah. Um, so like come see a gig or something and just people watch. That's like
Dude, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
all I would do.
It depends how you want to experience Vegas. It's like you could do like go hit all the clubs and stuff and do all that. And there's a lot of good hiking and stuff too. Yeah. Yeah. Let me
Hmm.
know when you want to cruise out and we'll figure some stuff out.
I'd love to. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Before you go, where can people find you?
You can find me at so Instagram is J Michael Music. I think it's an underscore music. Um, I don't know if probably not gonna get on Facebook. This is super weird.
Yeah.
Do you have like I feel like Instagram is more like worldwide. Facebook is a local thing. Is that kind of how do you use Facebook a whole lot? I don't
Rarely.
use it a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Facebook was like a high school thing or like a college thing.
right.
Or like I don't
At
use
least
it at
here it's
all.
like you can tell local, hey, I got this local show, and people typically like show up, which
Yeah.
is kind of cool. But yeah, J Michael Music. If you go to the Instagram page, there's actually a link. It's a link tree link, and it's got all my socials on there.
Sweet. What's it?
But
Do you have a
yeah,
website too?
nope. I just use that link tree.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Do you have a
Sick.
web? I guess yeah, you have a website. Stupid question.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't really use it too much. I only use it to send it to like just random people if they just want to see some stuff. But link, it's like the
Sure.
same thing. Linktree is
Mhm.
like as long as they can see you play and
Right.
see videos of you, it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
Yeah. But dude,
We'll see
well,
this year. Might build one.
yeah, this was cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Super nice to meet you. And dude, yeah, let me know when you want to cruise out to Vegas, and we'll figure some stuff out. And dude, yeah, it was cool chatting with you. Good to hear your
Sounds good,
story.
man. I appreciate it. We'll enjoy the rest of the evening.
Cool, man. Yeah, you too.
All right. Take care. Talk to you soon.
All right, see you, bud.